Hello again, everyone. This is Dave from YourGift.Life, and with me again tonight is Toby. And tonight we've got a special guest, Mr. Michael Ray from the Smile Project, and we're super excited to have you on tonight, Michael, and really eager to hear your story and have you talk a little bit about some of the awesome things that I know you guys have going on. So, welcome.
Brothers, I often say I'm blessed that I crossed your path, that you wanted me in your space for some time. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the way I came across you was on LinkedIn, and we were talking a few minutes ago before we got started about the following on LinkedIn, and the post was just basically you were going in and you were putting a smile on somebody's face that somebody was nominated and felt like they needed it, and give them a little something, and just tell me about what that process is like, and what basically what starts that.
Well, let me back up just for a hot minute and tell people why smiling is important to me. And that's because of having a 21-year-old daughter who's nonverbal. She has Down syndrome. She says a handful of words, but doesn't put two words together. And I tell anyone who's a parent, we take for granted that our children say, I love you. But when you've never heard I love you from one of your kids, it does take on a different meaning. But for me, then that kind of flipped the script and went into the nonverbal cues and the beauty of smiling. So as I went through a lot of challenges in my life, whether that was being a father of a special needs daughter, I lost a son, my career fell apart, my marriage fell apart, I lost my house, and I found myself, as a mid 40-year-old man living with his parents, thinking that my life had no value. Well, what kind of started to bring me out of that was the relationship that I had with my daughter who had Down syndrome. Never thinking then that it would intersect at a drive-through. So you had the genesis of my daughter, Maddie, and then a stranger at a drive-through. And where that was important is because, as I tell people, and I'm getting to your answer, and that is we never know what one person is going through in life as we run through our daily routines. And sometimes the nonverbal cues and things we do with strangers in these small moments can make such a difference. And that's where I was about 3 years ago, in which I knew as a 48-year-old man, I was in the process of probably sometime soon going to lose my job. And I was trying to process, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So when I went through Wendy's, it was the interaction of a stranger that made me feel good. So as I had time to prayerfully reflect over what that meant as far as the relationship with my daughter and then a stranger, I started taking random pictures with strangers because it made me feel good. Fast forward about a year and a half of taking those pictures, then I thought of going, if I'm trying to make these random strangers smile by just taking pictures, what would it feel like if I did a random act of kindness to make someone smile? And we made a choice to go into the inner city. Anybody listening locally went to 28th and Broadway, the Kroger's. And we walked the aisles of Kroger's, and we wanted to bless someone, never thinking in that moment that when we had a $50 gift card to Kroger's, that we were going to have a little bit of conflict, because we're like, who is the who then? And we saw two different, what appeared to be single mothers, and we're like, oh my gosh, why does one deserve it over another? But we went and did it. And not only, did we witness what they felt, it's what we felt, too, by being kind. And this was about 18 months or so ago. So after the first one, it was like, oh my gosh, this blew us away. So it was like a drug, and we were like, where are we going to go next? So the second time around, I decided, well, we got to go again, finding someone of need. So we rolled to like 9th and Broadway, to where they give aid for single mothers that, go for assistance. And it was the same thing again. But we were sharing these to social media locally. So, of course, it started to resonate with people. And then we got about 6 weeks in. And as people were watching these, And this is the answer you're looking for. And that is, how do you figure out where to go? And I'm like, well, I don't know. We're just kind of making it up, by the seat of our pants. And someone then said, well, what if I told you about someone who needed the smile? And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, tell me their story. Mm-hmm. And then they would share what they were going through in life. And I'm like, this is brilliant. So then we started then at that point putting it out there going, hey, if you know of anybody and you would love to nominate them. And that's then kind of the direction as we got into the fall and the latter part of 2019, people started reaching out to us, telling us what someone was going through, whether they lost their job, battling cancer, had a child that died. I mean, the stories are endless now of people that I've interacted with that they just need to feel loved. Mm-hmm. And they need to know, I don't know how many I did. I want to say I probably did 10 or 12 in the fall. And I got asked to go to a school in the south end of Louisville. And I often say I have this very little prayer, very short prayer I say right before I go in, because as I tell people when I do these, they're 90 seconds to 2 minutes. They go boom, boom, boom. It's very real. It's nothing rehearsed. So you're going into where you don't know if people are going to be emotional. So I have this really quick, short prayer I say for the right words that come from my mouth in the moment. And we got asked to go to this school for a 28-year-old school teacher who was battling stage 3 colon cancer. And they asked me to come in because these teachers, they were like, we don't know how this lady does it. She comes in, she's going for treatment, and she's the most positive, upbeat teacher, even though she's battling for her life. So I get in the classroom, I'm in the moment, I've got about 20, 25 kids all around. And as I have my arm around this lady, and as the kids start walking up to hug her, I uttered the words, we smile and make others smile because life is hard and it's not easy. And for people like you who find a way to smile through such adversity is really what life is all about. Mm-hmm. Is being able to, even though we go through these hardships and challenges and all of this. So it was kind of a long-winded answer, but it was kind of the genesis of where this started and then where it's positioned me to where now 80, 90% of the people that I go do, people are telling me, what's going on. And then it's the other 10, 20% that I love at times because I never know sometimes. And that's why I have 1 or 2 gift cards in my car, because I'll feel it. I'll be somewhere and just feel it, like at a drive-through. Or I was recently out by the summit. And as I was pulling away, a maintenance worker just waved to me and smiled. I'm like, it's on. And I just did an impromptu one, but and that's the beauty of it is, and then what I tell people is, it's just in these very short moments, really what a smile is just telling someone you care, you love them. Mm-hmm. It's that nonverbal communication that for years my daughter was telling me. She didn't have to say, I love you, Dad. I felt it.
When you mentioned that story about your daughter and having to have the ability to have those nonverbal communications, when my kids were young, we went to they both went to daycare at Bridgepoint, which is basically a place where a lot of folks go for special needs and things like that. They have physical therapy and things like that. Well, there was a girl there that that had Down syndrome, and every single day you saw her face lit up. She'd come up and grab you and give you a hug. I never met this child before in my life, and she gave me a hug. And I'm like, if anybody tries to tell me that you're born bad, and God makes anybody that's bad, you didn't see the love in this little girl's face. And I think it's amazing when you have that ability to be around someone that can give you true love like that without ever saying a word.
Yeah, Toby and Dave, let me tell you, and I guess this is what, as I have evolved as a father and a man, children like Maddie and those with Down syndrome, and this is just a crazy analogy, are like dogs. Because dogs really only know unconditional love. They have this unconditional love for their master. And those with Down syndrome are blessed with this gift in which they're hardwired. They don't know hate. They have a filter in which all they know when I'm around them is just what you described. It's they have this infinite love for humanity. And there's so many other things, that I've seen with Maddie and others with Down syndrome, that the level of patience these kids have. A lot of them don't live with fear and anxiety and stress. Because they find such joy in the simple things of life. Mm-hmm. And those simple things, usually what they are people. Mm-hmm. It's their friends and family. And I think that's what God really intended for us is, when you really want to feel that love, there's no better place to find it than family and friends.
Well, even the Bible talks about faith like a child.
Yeah.
So it's like we all kind of strive to maintain that. We lose it at some point. And so to see that in others, and, I know today's actually National Down Syndrome Day.
It's World Down Syndrome Day because it's 321, for that chromosome. So yeah, it is. Yeah.
So it's interesting, it's cool to have you on today, knowing that was an inspiration for your story. And so thanks for definitely coming and sharing.
No, you appreciate it. Yeah.
Meaningful day. If you think back through all the stories and the people that you've met, are there any that just really stand out as just game changers that I know you probably have a bazillion of things that you've done that just tell your heart. Like,
well, the answer is yes. And when if you rewind, when it was first about taking pictures, and I often said, I never wanted to force a picture. So, I may have taken a picture on Monday and it wasn't like waking up Saturday going, oh my gosh, I haven't taken a picture with a stranger in 5 days. I have to go out driving around now to find somebody. I always left it at and truly believed it was the Holy Spirit putting me at the right place at the right time. And I could feel a lot of times after the interactions with people that I was. Here's a story. So I had about 30 minutes to kill. And I was like, you know what? I want to just chill, get on some Wi-Fi. I'm going to go park at Starbucks again at the summit. So I go into Starbucks. I'm sitting there chilling. And all of a sudden, this dude walks in and he walks by me and walks into the bathroom. And I'm like, this is my guy. He comes in. Now, you got to picture this guy about 6'4", cowboy boots, wearing a hat, white hair, long white beard. I'm like, I don't know what it meant about this guy. So when he came out of the bathroom, I always had this really, really quick elevator pitch, because I wanted to make people feel comfortable quickly. But I've often said I've been blessed with this innate ability that I'm very comforting. I'm very charming, with strangers, and it puts them at ease. So he comes out, and this guy's name's Joe, and usually my elevator pitch was, brother, I'm all about really making people smile, and I post it on social media because I'm just trying to affect people's attitudes and behaviors through the love of smiling. And then I would usually drop something about my daughter, and then, wow, they would find it fascinating, and we would usually share just a couple of minutes together, and we would take the picture. So I took the picture with Joe, and I always left people with a calling card. And the calling card on one side was, a smile, and it said Smile Project Louisville. On the backside had my name and had our website and such. So I left it with him. I took the picture, and then a day later, he sent me a message, and he said, I just want to thank you. He said, I had to go to the bathroom. I could have gone to the bathroom anywhere. I could have gone across the street at Kroger's or Speedway. I don't know why I went into Starbucks, but this is that God moment. He said, but I went into Starbucks. I run into you, and I want to thank you because I just left the cemetery. I buried my father.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into you, and all you wanted to do was make me smile. Now, you can't tell me, again, when I talk about being in the right place at the right time, I call that divine intervention, and that's just God kind of placing us where we need to be in those right moments, never knowing. I rewind back to the Kroger's at 28th and Broadway, the very first random act of kindness that I ever did. It took the mom 3 weeks to send me a message. And she said it was like God delivered an angel that day. We were living from house to house, having a hard time finding ways to just put food on the table. And there you were.
One of the things that a friend and I have started doing is we understand what doing something like that can do to a person, and we know that feeling that you have and the feeling that they're going to have of appreciation. But I typically don't want the credit. I don't care about getting the credit.
Sure.
I don't care. I just want to put goodness out in the world. So what we've started doing and is going out to lunch and taking $100. Each of us take $100 cash, order the food, get whatever we want, drop the $200 if it's just me and him, if it's somebody else, $300, whatever, on the table and walk out. They could have had that same experience the day before, who knows. But the idea that you're putting something good out in the world and
Amen.
You're just doing it and you don't care whether the credit's out there, you're just doing it. And you don't that gets to me because I know that I did something better than I could have done if I just paid the normal tab. And being able to have the charisma to go up to individual strangers and something like that is something that I've never really had when it comes to doing things like that. So being able to do what you do is actually a special gift. It's not something that anybody could just do. And we see a lot of the folks online and doing special things like that, but it's not the one time, it's not the 2 times, it's the 17 times and the 29 times that you do it. And like you were talking about, it's like an adrenaline rush, and it's something that you feel like, when's the next time that I can do this? Frankly, I get a little bit out of these podcasts when I do that, when I talk to folks like yourselves, because I get excited about the next one, because I'm like, there's just so many people out there.
There is something to be said about that. And I recently, so as my platform has grown, let me rewind though and just address what you just said. And look, the reality of it is that 99.9% of what happens in this world is not videoed. And that's the beauty of how I live and how most people live and what we do to create that ripple effect. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's not about credit. And I think people see that in that they see the relationship with my daughter and they see in these moments of how real it is. And, people use those terms of it's original, it's authentic, it's transparent, it's just real human beings. And what I've said at times is that I'll never diminish the people who tell people to go be kind. I think the thing with me and knowing that God has blessed me in a certain way, I'm a doer, I'm a shower. So being that I have that ability of in these moments of making people feel very comfortable. And I don't know how many I've done now, easily probably 150 or more, that it is like a drug. I recently went to Florida. So with all the relationships, when you mentioned early on tonight, LinkedIn, of all the relationships I built on LinkedIn, I went on a Florida tour in the first part of February for 8 days. I drove 1,000 miles. We did 20 of these in Florida. And in one of them, it wasn't a singular one, but what people, when they watch me, but when they go do it. The analogy I always use, guys, is that if you're sports fans, we could be watching the same game. I don't know, you guys are in Indiana, you're probably IU fans. But imagine, look at Toby. but the analogy
we're both Kentucky fans.
Okay. Well, okay, so think of this. Imagine sitting courtside, next to the bench of Calipari versus me watching the game at home. The outcome is the same, but you feel it differently in the venue. Mm-hmm. And when we did one in Miami and we walked away after doing it, the dude looked at me and said, "It's like an effing drug." He goes, "That was amazing." Mm-hmm. He's like, "I want to do another one." I said, "See, because again, you feel it, you can watch it, and you do get those emotions. But when you're in the room and you're actually doing it firsthand, and then what happens a lot of times is the camera goes off as soon as we're done. And then there are emotional, we don't just leave. Sometimes we're there for 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes we're there for 10 to 15 because they're trying to process what an absolute complete stranger, just did in the moment. So I guess if I rewind and I did the first 5 or 6 and they weren't well received by the community, maybe it would have fallen flat on its face. But because it didn't, it gave me the joy too in what I experienced. And then again, it evolved to where people were reaching out and they kept feeding off of it. So no, it's not. But then I've seen now the ripple effects of how beautiful social media is. I mean, look, it can be a very divisive, awful, negative tool that can also be beautiful. And the relationships that I've built with people all over this city and country who have started to do things in their community because of what they've seen, that's got it work, man. That's all that awesome. Is. That's all that is. And that is that ripple effect in which most people don't do it because they don't believe they can create enough change.
Or like Toby said, it's a comfort thing, so it's like God, I talk, one of my favorite quotes is that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. And, I say right. that, as a 2-time like Ironman triathlon finisher, like I've always pushed myself to that, you reach new heights, but that, this is a great example of, man, like I kind of want to go do something here, but I'm really not comfortable. I'm not good at it. Well, like do it, like go do it. And then you're going to feel that rush and it's going to expand you and your capabilities. And so,
and David told me, how many people have we listened to that often say, really, once you leave that comfort zone is where the brilliance and the excellence and all those beautiful things that happen. I walked out of Kroger's one time and I had bags in my hands and I had that feeling. I didn't know what to do. And I knew my phone was in my back pocket. And this is back when I was taking pictures. And I was like, I saw these 2 black women and I wanted to do something. I didn't know what to do. So I switched the bags really quick into one hand as I walked up. And again, I just felt it. I put my arm around one, literally. And I turned and looked and I laughed and I said, "Hey, when's the last time a white man put his arm around you?" And she turned up to me, started laughing. She goes, "Never, and it's about damn time." And I said, "See?" And then her friend next goes, "And look, he smells good too." And I turned, I gave her a high five. And that's all it was. And I walked off. There's no video, there's no pictures. But again, the point is, and I'm not trying to tell everybody out there to go put your arm around strangers, but the point is, it's just like at the Wendy's drive-thru. These small moments happen, and we don't know what people are processing and going through in life. And, you could be at Kroger's in the self-checkout, not knowing that the girl on the other end is processing that her mom's dying or, whatever's going on in life. Mm-hmm. And you may be, again, it happened for me at a Wendy's drive-thru. It can happen anywhere.
Yeah, when you take that perspective at life, it starts to change things. And we talk about is like, if that's your if you recognize and realize and appreciate the fact that folks are experiencing life very differently, everyone experiences it differently and are fighting their own battles at times. And so if you take that approach, like what that could just do to your own life, and the time someone cuts you off in traffic, if you're immediate,
and you're exactly right, and that person, then we react, but that person may have been processing so much going on and the intent wasn't there, and then we react and they're trying to figure out life, and then
they could have been on their way to the hospital. Like you said, they got emergency call about their parents, and if you start making that assumption, you're like, all right, well, I'm not mad anymore. I'd rather be cut off than having to be trying to get to the hospital. So it's definitely.
I did one time. I was on, I don't know if you know where Blake and Baker Parkway is.
Sure.
This was early in COVID, maybe a month or two in, and we were going down Blake and Baker, and this dude was riding me, and I looked down, I'm like doing 60. And as I pull up to the stoplight, he pulls up next to me, is wearing a mask, and he gives me the finger, and I roll the window down, and I said, you can at least pull the mask down and smile when you But again, it's how we process that in the moment. And if you allow yourself to become enraged, it just, those emotions start getting both people carried away when, again, I don't know what he's going through, so just that simplicity of the moment then gets somebody else to laugh about it.
When we used to both work downtown before everything shut down there, but I would be walking around downtown and almost every single time, if I could, somebody would ask me for money. There'd be somebody down there asking me for money, and I'd give them money. And people keep on going, why do you keep giving them money? And he goes, don't you know they're just probably going to buy alcohol or something? I'm like, that has nothing to do with me. Only thing that I can do is help them out. If I'm capable, help them out. It doesn't really matter. And sometimes if I only have a 20, they get a 20. If I have some singles, I give them that. Whatever.
You know how it is. Sometimes that's all we have on us.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, I almost treat it like a test. Like I'm being tested here to do the right thing and to do the good thing for someone. And they were like, well, that same person asked you for money 2 days ago. Apparently they need it. Apparently they're out there asking me for money. And why not go ahead and do it? And I'm not saying that everybody should just go give everybody money on the street. But for me, I usually will never say no, just because. Why not?
It's hard. I walked, I'll go back and tell you the power of video. So it was my birthday last August, and we were walking out of La Bodeguita, which happens to be downtown Louisville on Market. And as I walked out, there was a brother sitting there, and he looked up to me and smiled. And usually, again, I just feel things, and I'm like, it's on, man. This is my guy right here. So I walked up to him. I sat down next to him, and I started talking to him. And my girlfriend sometimes can feel these moments, and she just started videoing. Come to find out, Nate was homeless. And a lot of times in my videos, when I get near the very end, and this is something I always did when I took pictures, I would ask them what was amazing about them to get them to appreciate self-love. That we're all amazing in our own right when we come to just think it in simple forms. But that brother looked at me and he said, I just love people. And I had to process that in my mind. I'm like, Nate's homeless, but he still loves people. So we videoed that. I shared it to LinkedIn. So of course that goes out, everywhere in the world. And someone who follows me, who's part of my community, comes in, he's over in London. He goes, I love that dude. What if I sent you $100? Can you find that guy? And I'm like, how do you find a homeless dude? I'm like, there's no way. So I said, look, if I can ever find the guy, I'll let you know and we'll work it out. So about 3 weeks later, we're at our community pool. We were sitting there talking to people there, and we get introduced to a couple that happen to own La Bodeguita. And they saw the video, and they're like, Nate is the only homeless guy we don't run off. I said, man, you know Nate? He's like, yeah, he comes up there every night. We don't run him off because he's good to people. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I reached back out to my dude in London. I said, you can't make this up. I said, we got a way to find Nate. He goes, what? He Western Unions me $100. About a week later, we go back down to La Bodeguita. So we're sitting in there having dinner. And about 5 minutes before our meal was up, I look outside and I'm like, oh, Heavenly Father, the good Lord has put Nate right outside. I'm like, you can't make this up. So we pay, we come outside about 10 minutes later, Nate's gone. And I'm like, no, it's not supposed to work like this. He's supposed to be sitting outside. I got a dude from London give me $100. So my girlfriend and my kids were like, hey, Dad, let's walk a couple of blocks down and come back. So we did. We walked 2 blocks down. We were walking back, and there was Nate. And as I walked up, the part of the story I didn't tell you from the first piece was I gave Nate $20. Okay, the first time. So as I walk up, he looks at me and he goes, hey, wait, you're my dude. And I'm like, what's up, man? And next thing you know, we hugged it out. And I said, do you remember what happened last time? Yeah. I said, do you remember we videoed it? I said, I'm going to blow your mind. But I said, like 50,000 people all over the world watched. And I said, someone who watched, it resonated with them over in England. And I said, my man, I have $100 for you. He started crying right there. We gave him $100. And then, it was a beautiful moment. And then like 3 weeks later, we were volunteering, giving out clothes and food to the homeless. We run into Nate again. He comes up that day and he wanted to thank us because he went out and bought pants, a watch, and shoes for a job interview because he was trying to get clean and get off the streets and get a job and do things. And that's where his $100 went. So you can't tell me again that's not the work of the Lord. And that's why I say sometimes that's the power of video. And where then, it's the beauty of people opening their hearts and paying it forward all over the world to bless people.
That's awesome. Amazing. I'm assuming we could be here for 3 hours talking about stories and we'd be, I think Dave and I would absolutely love listening.
I gotta go get some bourbon first if we do that.
No kidding. But I want to thank you for certainly telling these stories and talking about what you're doing. And I hope people are listening, and I hope people watch this. Our network may not be as big as yours, but I know that we have a lot of good friends.
Let me leave you with this, and it's not about how big it is. What it does come down to again is I was just a dude who drove through Wendy's. It's about touching that one person that may change them and where they need to be in their day and their life. But yet what you described when you go to restaurants and do for people and what I leave for people, and this is what I want to leave you with here tonight, is that as we go through life, we hear so many quotes. And there's one singular quote that I got about a year in, and it really started resonating with me in what I do. And that's what Maya Angelou said. And you may have heard this before, but it's so true, is that people will forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So when you do that in a restaurant, or I give somebody a gift card, they spend it. It's cool. I give them balloons. The balloons die. They throw them in the trash. But these people that we do things for, Toby, they don't forget in these moments how good it feels. And that's what stays with people. And I do think that's where the ripple effect is created, in which then they do for others.
Well, what I want to make sure of is people who want to be able to help your mission and what you're doing. What can people do to get in contact with you to help out if they want to give $100 so you can give something to Nick or to Nate as well? What can people do to help out?
Well, the first thing is they can go to my website. The really cool thing about the website is that you don't even have to be on social media. And the good thing about that is it has a plugin. So the things that we do on social media actually get uploaded You can see everything there, all the stories and videos and things. You can donate. You can also go in and nominate somebody. So if somebody's watching tonight that knows somebody that needs to have a smile delivered to them and make them feel loved, they can go on there. I tell people, a 10-year-old can go and navigate it. There's just a few tabs. It's very simple. Tell us somebody. If there's somebody in our community that we need to go bless, spread the word. Tell other people about us, and actually just simply just do it. Just be this in your life. And I always say, be the reason why someone smiles today. And that doesn't mean that you have to give them money. It's just the simplicity of what we do when we walk past people.
Well, I can't speak for Dave, but I'm sure he feels the same way. I'm really glad I ran across that post on LinkedIn. I'm really glad I heard your story. I'm extremely happy that we got to talk to you tonight. I'm impressed by what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
I hope we can continue to do and someday get to the point where you're at today. So I thank you for coming on.
No, gentlemen, I often say it's a two-way street, and it starts with you guys. So thank you for the good Lord putting me in your path and you asking me to share some time with you guys tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. We really do appreciate it. And to all those out there listening and watching, we thank you and we encourage you to reach out, learn more about the Smile Guy and the Smile Project. Check him out on social, but also his website. And again, thanks for the listen and the follow with YourGift.Life. We appreciate it and hope you all have a great evening. Thanks.
Take care.